In this video, we're going to start looking at data analysis in Python using Pandas. So what are Pandas? So Pandas is simply a Python library for doing data analysis and visualization. It's pretty much perhaps the most commonly used library for doing data analysis and data science anywhere, and it's quite powerful, as you're going to start seeing in the next videos. Now, we're going to start looking at particularly two constructs that are part of Pandas. The first is what's called series, and the second one is DataFrame. Now, I want to encourage you, as you start learning more about doing basic data analysis using Pandas, I want to encourage you to browse on YouTube and other sites for tutorials on using DataFrames, because you could learn a lot by just following worked examples, much more than we can do in a classroom setting. And also the official documentation webpage for Pandas contains some really great tutorials to get you started. So I want to encourage you to use these resources. So first off, we're going to look at a construct within Pandas called series. Now, series bears some resemblance to a list, which we're familiar with, as well as a dictionary. So series is a single-dimensional collection. And let's see, here's some code to define a series. So first off, this is a bit of a convention. So when the import statement over here, so we're importing Pandas, but we're defining an alias for Pandas called PD. So when we import a module like that, from this point on, we could use PD to refer to Pandas. So that just saves us a few characters of typing, but it's convention, so I just want to follow that. So in this case, we create a series using a list of 4 numbers, and then we call our series data. So let's see what that series would look like if I were to execute this. And here we are. So we have a series, and this is our data, which is what we defined here. And then we see that our data is indexed the same way as it is in a list. Okay. Now, as it turns out, we could also access elements within a series using the square bracket notation. And in this case, I'm trying to, I will attempt to output the element at index 1, so this should output 4. Okay. So moving on, now it turns out, series are a bit more versatile than lists, in that they allow you to define the indices yourself, just like we do that in a dictionary. So here's an example of how we would create a series and define the indices at the same time. So here, PD again for Pandas, we're defining a series, and here are the values we're gonna initialize the series with, and then here are the indices. So instead of using 0, 1, 2, 3, we're going to use A, B, C, D as our indices. So if we print this out, output the data, here we are. You see that our indices are what we define them to be, A, B, C, and D. Okay. So, and same as before, instead of using the index, the integer index to access a value in the series, we could use our user-defined index. So here's an example using B as the index, and we output 5 as we'd expect. Okay, now with this series, we could also use the slice operator, just like we did in a list. So let's look at a quick example of doing that. So here I'm using the slice operator, and the indices I'm using are the ones I've defined in the previous slide. So starting at index A all the way to B. So let's run this, and if we run this, we see that it output the values including B. So this is different from slicing a list, where if you remember in a list, the second value after the colon is not included in the slice, whereas in this case it is included. So it's something to remember. Sometimes that could cause a little confusion. So again, the slice includes the element at the second index, B. Okay, so this is pretty much it in terms of series. So series, again, are single-dimensional structures. So now we're going to move on to data frames. And data frames, that's perhaps the most important construct that's defined in Pandas. So data frame is a two-dimensional version of a series. Now, because it's two-dimensional, it's suited for representing tabular data. And oftentimes when we get a data set, it's represented as a table or an Excel sheet. So data frame is perfect for representing such data and manipulating it. Okay, so our first example for working with a data frame is to actually create a data frame from two series. So we're going to define two series. So in this case, the example we're going to work with is to create a data frame that contains information about the populations of different states. Here are the states that we're going to be working with, as well as their areas in square miles. So these are the populations in millions, and these are, the areas in square miles. So here we define the two series, population and area, and let's run this. Well, there is no output, but we know these are initialized, and now we're going to combine the two series into a data frame. So let's see how we do that. Now, the syntax is a little unusual. It's not something you probably that's easy to remember. But essentially, what we're doing here is that specifying the columns for the data frame. So again, the data frame is a table. Think of it as a table. So these are the column titles, and the data that we're using for the population column is the population series, and then for the area column, we're going to use the area series. And notice that, these are enclosed in curly braces over here, which means that we're sending these to a data frame as a dictionary. So it's a little convoluted, but once you have a working example, you could just use it again. So we don't need to get into more details and try to understand why they went about it this way. So let's give this a try. So here I'm creating the data frame, pd.DataFrame, so that states as a data frame, and then the next line, well, before I run this, line 2, so in Jupyter Notebook, when I just simply type the name of a variable in a line, it's going to output its content. So it's equivalent to actually printing the variable. So we're going to see that when we run the code. So here we are. So once you execute it, we have, this is our data frame. So you have the row indices, which are the names of the states, and then we've defined the 2 columns, population and area. Okay. Okay, and this just gives us the basics of what a series is and what a data frame is. So in the next video, we're gonna look at how to work with data frames and some of the basic operations that we can apply to data frames.